Yep, we are good to go now.
No, wait. Yes.
Kia ora and welcome back. Shailesh, welcome back once again to this series of analysis. And thank you so much for taking out your time once again. And the party which we'll be discussing next is the Green Party.
Yes. Thank you once again, Sheerali, for inviting me to this Green Party political analysis of their policies. And I think it's a good time and good way that we are doing all the political parties analysis so that we can give our opinion suggestions to our, pros and cons of all the political parties for all our listeners. And they can have an informed choice of actually understanding from a normal common man's perspective what really means to them if Green is saying this and ACT is saying that, or Labour or National and NZ First. And these are one of the major political parties in this election, because all of a sudden three major minor parties which were before, in fact, NZ First was not even existent in the last, and now they have come up, which is quite interesting. So which we'll be also talking about it later. But Greens was always there for the last 3 decades, I guess, but they have been emerging in the last decade or so very prominently. But last 6 years, definitely, I have been a very instrumental to do for them because they were in the government. So I'm having a good pleasure to actually talk about Green Party. I do have certain resonations with some of the policies that they have, and they have been very good with the current Labour Party, who they have been supporting all this along. So it will be good to see and good to talk about their policies today that we will be. So yeah, I am happy to do some analysis on certain key aspects which affects the day-to-day life of our common man. And today we are living in a very situation where people have got an assumption that, okay, we want economy to grow or we want money. But other than that, we also want Green Party, because Green Party may not be, you may not think that Green Party doesn't have any influence on those aspects, and they are having only influence or on environmental, but it's not like that, what we can see from the policy. So let's dwell into that.
Yeah. So the first thing, as you said, that climate action is the forefront of the party. So I will start with that.
Sure.
And it was interesting for me to read that, they are planning to establish a standalone Ministry of Climate Change and empowering the Commission for the Climate Action Plan, right? So as per, in your opinion, what is some of the key points, if you're able to outline some specific strategies that they are proposing to reduce the climate pollution?
Yeah, see, green predominantly has been existent only for that, to take care of the environmental as we know, or as we perceive, or as the perception is. But Green Party has come along a long way from just the environmental and climate aspects. But as they always say, climate change is the first and foremost for any other things to do. Whether it is, if you want to look at the first is human existence. We live in an environment, we live in a climatic conditions, we live in a natural environment. And they want to make sure that they are looked after, the environmental, where we live, where we stand, where we sleep, where we, stay. All these aspects are very important for them. And this is something has been very much on their agenda, that first and foremost, let's make the climate change issues resilient. And to do those resilient, there are lots of steps they have taken. Then with the modernization, industrialization, lots of pollution, lots of these things happen. And when these things happen, ultimately it affects our human only. It affects us. So whether it is roads, whether it is houses, whether it is, air that we breathe, everything, all needs to be taken care. The environmental, as you know, there are lots of things, environmental, biosecurity, these things matters when people come and travel from different parts of the world, also in the country. So our waters, basically, our air that we breathe, our water that we drink, And all these pollutions that we create through modernization, under the name of modernization or industrialization, they can do that, but it has to be a proper, process to do that. And I think with their policies and the investments, they were always struggling to get an investment because they are a smaller party. They have to depend on the major party who is ruling. And so, but in the last 6 years, and I think I give more credit to the last Prime Minister, who was Jacinda Ardern, who came and then who recognized not just the child poverty, but she recognized climate change. And then she knew lots of youngsters at that time were also favoring the climate change issues, or something needs to be done for the climate, right? Basically. So lots of investments, lots of policies were handed over to James Shaw, who is the Green Party leader, and Marama Davidson, who are the two key aspects, but also Chloe Swarbrick and other members of Green Party really were vocal about climate change, were vocal about everything. In that regard, lots of investments were done by Labour at that time, helping the climate, regarding the climate, because they aligned with their policies. And more than $1 billion, $2 billion, almost like, was invested. And then COVID came, and then lots of policies were had to be put at the back branch, and like give the priorities change, basically, as we saw. But they still are under that growth, and largest investment was done in the last 6 years for climate, basically. So I think lots of things that were done through the climate, and then we saw they had already said that, it's just a matter of time. When the floods came, that was just a matter of time that if we had done enough in the infrastructure, in the land and everything, that our houses are built, if we had taken care of the climate change issues, we probably would have been not completely eliminated, but we could have resilient more, and we could have sustained more. So that is one of the key policies that they design, all the climate conditions, that whether because the climate change is like real, and it happens anytime, and doesn't come you with a warning. It just comes, basically. So
it's happening everywhere. The New York floods,
correct.
We saw them, like, there's no country, whether it is developed, underdeveloped, or developing, we're all prone to that. So that's something very interesting the Green Party is doing, and all kudos to them. I also believe that Green Party is very much aligned with the Treaty of Waitangi and respecting the Kapapa Maori values, preserving, conserving the environment. So from that perspective as well, it's some of the good policies over there, which I can see. Coming to the next question, Shailesh, something which again is for the common people, which is about the children and family support. Right. So there's some of their policies talk about ensuring that families get enough of the benefits or enough of the money to not just survive but thrive. That's something, that's a very good keyword which I mentioned, saw that. So around those children family support policies, what's your takeaway on some of their specific policies?
I think they have, that's what people perceive greens as only climate, greens as only environmental, greens as only, making a difference or making an impact to make sure our planet is safe and secured. But with that, as they always claim that this is the first thing to do that. And then the second thing is kids, families, people. And when it comes to that, I think their policies for this term and even previously, they were strong advocates of inequality, when again in 2017 it was recognized that there is a lot of child poverty, there is a lot of family issues, there is a lot of depriving and privileged and underprivileged people that existed. And so they wanted to have a holistic approach of how we make our kids, our families together grow, not just basic needs are met, but they thrive. And to do that, there were some good policies that even Labour did, and Jacinda did at that time, was to help the schools, right? It starts from the schools, kids, but it also starts from your home when they're born. So how do you look after their kids when they're born, look after the mothers so that they can take care of it? So it's a combination. It's not just kids, but it's the mother first, to when the child is born. If you don't take care of the mother, then the child is not going to have that kind of, thriving or life that we expect. It's only a survival mode then. So now they had some good policies around that, which they put it, and they recognize that there is a need for these kids to be removed from the child poverty. When it was recognized, when the statistics came, when the data came in, they realized that, oh gosh, this is something which is alarming. People, families living in the cars or living in the caravans and all of that was not really acceptable for a first world nation. And as you said rightly, Treaty of Waitangi, they are very close to that aspect as well. And in that Treaty of Waitangi, it's very clearly mentioned that every child or every person on this planet needs to be looked after. It's not Treaty of Waitangi is only Maori or something we think, but their policies are completely wider. It's humanity. They call humans first, basically. So they run on a very, very good humanity principle. And with that, what they did is when labor said, okay, we are going to do free lunches to remove, they said we need to remove the inequality. So to remove the inequality, let's give the family tax credit more. Let's increase the minimum wage. Let's increase the, kids welfare or the child care centers or the whatever the Plunkett Hospital, health services for the kids, children's hospital, everything was supported very well by Greens, I guess, from that angle. And they never shied away from that to recognize and to do something about it. In that, yes, in that there was also then Maori, South Pacifica region kids also came in because they were the ones who were also identified as not been given enough or not been taken care of enough. So it's not something that you are giving someone more or less, but it's trying to do equally everyone and recognize everyone that everybody is getting or not. That's the thing. So with their policies of even today, they see that parents cannot afford the rent. So now they have come up, with a cap on the rents on the rental. They also came up with a policy where they would like to keep a cap on the rent. Like you can't have more than 2% rent increase. And then you also have, even if you increase, it should be a minimum cap. That's how they came up with. Again, that's a great policy for the families to thrive, basically, or stability when it comes to, because we are living in a very dynamic world. The other aspect they also did, as you know, with the dental care or the free dental policy that they came up with, again, helping the kids to have less health issues in that regard. So dental is not just taking care of the dental, but actually dental causes lots of other health issues. And then you are forced into other health issues. And then you are spending more money on health, basically. So that's one of the things as well. But also they came up with, schools, as I said, like the school lunches where they can be looked after by the, if not parents, then the government is helping them to lift, basically. So some of the policies were aligned with labor, but their main focus was to reduce the inequity. And inequity reduction, if you look at from all their policies that are targeted to reduction of inequity. So when they say that we want to pay, even they are coming up with a tax policy, which is 10,000 first, they want to give no tax. Again, that's the only policy that Greens have come up with in spite of the major two political parties recognizing that there is a need, but they haven't. But Greens have come up. So I think listeners who are listening, they should understand that what in fact is does 10,000 is mean for you may be small, but in the scheme of things for many people who are owning 50,000 and 60,000 a year, 10,000 no tax is definitely a good option in terms of my accounting knowledge that in business advice that I give for people. It's something than nothing, and it's better something. Whereas, then you have dental care free, then you have got annual leave they are putting out as for the family as from 4 weeks to 5 weeks. So that's a good policy too, basically. So they are also coming up with a house to live healthy they want to put 36,000, 6,000 grant and 30,000 a loan for 10 years, where to upgrade, to give a solar energy in your home. And that something is amazing for a family, for a child, for anyone to live in a house, in a healthy home, so that they have less issues. And that's again is benefited anyway to the government, to everyone. So we are not paying taxpayers' money just because we want to pay aftermath. So they are taking some precautions where prevention is better than cure, as I always say. And I think Greens are done very well in that aspect, in this term, in this policy. So dental care free for everyone is a prevention of everything, prevention of a lot of things. Annual leave is also a mental well-being and health. To take 5 weeks is good enough. Then they also have this 10,000 bracket for no tax, also is a good thing. But then school kids, when they are deprived and when they need the most, at least their lunches are taken care of. So the parents don't have that burden at this point until they come out of their, situation that they are in, or low income. So low income earners have been given, looked after and targeted. They know we cannot reduce the inequality overnight, but the measures that they are taking is absolutely wonderful. I personally feel that's what I feel. Yeah.
That's some very, very good points out there, Shailesh. And I can see that, they are up into this conservation, biodiversity, culture, creativity. Very good to see that they are thinking of better working conditions for artists and for the disabled people. So something very good policies out there. My last question for you would be around the democracy and inclusivity. And they are, favoring lowering the voting age to 16. And that's something, which I think that our people or kids mature enough by 16 to vote and understand, what we are discussing over here. And they've also been talking about reinstating the prisoner voting rights. Yeah. So what's your take on those 2 points?
Yeah, good question, because these are very important things to understand, that why in the current dynamic in the world that we are living in, with a complete new generation and the youngsters who have got a different mindset. We have a different mindset, they have a different mindset. So for them, we may think they are only 16. For our time, 16 was too little or too naive. We don't know anything because we are not aware of it. We are fully pampered or in the house with my parents and everyone. So we don't know the world that we live in. Today's world is totally different, Sheerali. According to me, the way the world we live in, I've got kids, you probably have got kids. And then what I see today, the kids that we have, they are living in an environment, in a system, which is completely accessible to them. Whether it is right, wrong, whether it is good, bad, we don't know, but they have got lots of access to understand on their own. So there is a less participation of parents with the kids, basically, because they understand and they probably try to tell us that this is what is happening. You don't know anything, that kind of thing. So when you look at that aspect of it, lowering the age was also a concept again brought when the climate change issues came. As you can see, some of the advocates were all youngsters, mainly were youngsters, were kids from schools, high schools, from college, universities, These were the element that we saw all of a sudden, who were advocating for climate change. So if they understand the importance of climate change, then Greens thought they are well enough, well equipped, and well skilled enough to understand the importance of the environment that they are living in. But when it comes to decision making for kids, when it comes to decision making for those high school kids or the university kids, who is taking the decision? What is the participation of these kids? Zero. So if we are talking about kids, we want to take decisions about kids, and there is no participation, there is no dialogue between them, there is no engagement of them. That gives frustration for these kids, that you don't understand. We understand the way we want or what we want. If you allow us to give a question, I remember a few years ago, during the COVID, when the euthanasia bill came, when the cannabis bill came, particularly the euthanasia and the cannabis, but euthanasia was more focused on the kids, more focused on the, parents, not just parents, but the kids who will be affected by those euthanasia situation. And they thought we should be allowed in and participation in the referendum. Why are we not allowed? Because it affects us. And I remember my daughter, Sheerali, I'm not praising her about anything, but she decided to conduct this and told me, I want to participate in this and I want to do this. And she did it through her school. And there were different politicians were brought into the mix and they were asked questions by the kids, which was very important, very interesting. So my point is, lowering 16 age definitely is their way of thinking today. Whether it's right, wrong, we don't know unless it's implemented, unless its participation happens. Today, there is a lot of participation happens from different age group, and we think they are not taking the right decisions yet. So I am open to this idea of, exploring the young age. Yes, this is same like the crime. So if the crime is considered youngsters who are teenagers and all that are taking, that means they are not aware of lots of things, the education or anything. But certain kids who are aware of the education and everything, but they are not given the participation, they are not being given the engagement of taking or talking about policies, talking about things. I remember Jacinda participated she created in the parliament a youngster, and there was a youth MP for every single MP at that time, which was a good thing. That's how you come to know what is reality. You can't just sit home and talk. You got to be in the ground. You got to be with the people and with the community in real terms. And that was a good thing that they did. So I think capitalize on that. Green probably thought that, okay, let's do 16 vote is good enough. So again, it's a person to person difference. But at the age of 16, lots of things happen with the woman, with the men. They are teenage, but then they act like matured and they act like this. So there's a lot of dynamics, Sheerali. So I think 16 age, according to me, if they want to do it, because there is an adult that is considered in the constitution, that what is adult age and what is living on your own is legal. So when you look at that aspects, 16 is covering under that. At a 16, kids can live on their own. They don't need to be supervised. But at 14 or 15, they need to be supervised. But 16, they don't need. At the age they get 16 driver's license. So all these dynamics, when you look at it, then if they get driver's license, then why can't they get voting rights? That's a question. If they are out in the public, out in the roads on their own.
I think that's a fair enough analysis and interpretation of that, Shailesh. And we some pretty good policies and alignments, and it would be interesting to see if they form the government with Labour. Most probably that's what we anticipated, how they will influence the major party. With that, thank you, Shailesh. Thanks for your time for speaking on the Green Party policies. And we will meet once again and discuss our final party NZ first. Thank you, Shailesh.
Yes. And before this, I want to end with Sheerali. Just give me 1 minute. I want to say that, protection and prosper is something that, when you protect certain things, so when you protect your house, when you protect your environment, when you protect everything that is around you, that gives you a great sense and great stability. Just like the nature, Green's policy is one which I wanted to let all the people know as well. They are very much in conservation, as you mentioned that point. So I wanted to just tell you about that conservation, preserving the old, what they call it, species of
the biodiversity.
The biodiversity, and even the animals in the birds and everything, they are into that. So they want to preserve those things. They want to protect those things. So that's also one of their policies, which is really ideal. So they are keeping the nature safe, keeping the environment safe, along with you. So with that, I wanted to just say to all the listeners that, yeah, protect is something that they have been always, inequality that they have been always focused on, protection, inequality, and I would say thriving. When you said they want to thrive, they just don't want to do it only for the sake of doing a policy, but there is a lot of thoughts going behind it. So if they are bold enough, then all the political parties to come up with a dental free policy, to come up with a tax policy, which people think that they are not into commercial or business world, but they are into that understanding. With that, I wanted to just say that make an informed choice of Green or Labour or National or whatever party you want to vote. But yeah, these are the analysis that I can do with regard to Green. So with that, thank you very much, Sheerali, once again to talk about these Green Party policies.
Thank you, Shailesh. Thank you very much.